Welcome back to Ultimate Combat Radio. Mike Stidham here talking some mixed martial arts. This segment is brought to you by Beehive Bell Bonds because sometimes bad things happen to good people. And call Beehive if that happens to you. They'll get you right out of jail and right back on the radio. In studio, we've got Josh Burkman, the People's Warrior, man. It's kind of interesting, Josh being here, because we were looking at some old footage just yesterday, and it's just some of the old memories are dredging back up. And it's been a long, fun ride that this show has been, and it's great having you here, first of all, Josh.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
And when I want to mention, before we get too far down the road, that Brandon Kaiser, we had a poll question a few weeks back of who was the most accomplished Utah fighter, and Brandon Kaiser was the only one that picked Josh Burkman. He said, look, man, he's done more than anybody. And I couldn't argue with it.
Look it out, B.
So Josh fought in a co-main event of the UFC. Nobody else. I mean, Jeremy Horn, he was in a main event, got beat up. But
hey, I main evented too, okay?
Yeah, so, but Josh was the guy that really has penetrated further into the national scene than anybody else. And Court McGee may well be on his heels, but who knows, Josh? I mean, first of all, tell the folks at home where you're at in your career right now, what's going on with you, and where you been?
Well, the reason I'm here, I should be on a flight to Brazil right now, but I hurt my knee this last week.
You hurt your knee golfing?
And did not hurt it golfing. Golfing probably didn't help it.
What's amazing about, you got these amazing athletes that get in and beat the crap out of each other every day, and then they trip on a curb or they hurt themselves golfing. It's just amazing to me, and it happens on such a regular basis.
Yeah, your body, I mean, it's amazing. It conditions for one thing,
yeah.
And then you're supposed to be resting and you're out screwing around.
See, I'm a sexual dynamo.
What is a sexual dynamo?
And I trip on cracks in the sidewalk.
Right.
In my arena, I'm amazing.
Right.
What were you supposed to be going to Brazil for?
I was supposed to fight Wednesday against a kid named Leandro Silva, and in Manaus. And the fight, we had to back out of it. I didn't want to. We tried to work through my knee injury for about a week, and then, now I start rehab at Tosh on Monday. I basically dislocated my kneecap. My doctor's here, though, so he can tell you guys about it better than I can. Use those big words like medial
supraspinatus,
PMO, and yeah. So I basically dislocated my kneecap, and it's. I think that's just managing this injury will be, depending on where I go. 10 years in the sport, and managing injuries is part of where your success goes.
See, now, I've been going to the same chiropractor that you do, the Dr. Tim, and he's been so excited about your fight, man. I walked in, and he was just sunk over, so sad. That he goes, Josh hurt his knee, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a big fight for me because I've had probably the best training camp I've maybe ever had. I was feeling in better shape. My weight was down, and I was probably more focused than I've ever been for a fight. I'm getting to that point in my career where I put everything else aside. Like, I'm just focused on becoming a better fighter every day. And so to get the injury at this time, I mean, it kind of sucks. But,
right.
There's good things that are happening. And, my goal is to get back to the UFC, and I need to win one more fight to do that.
Well, and I have a theory, though, because, Tiger Woods was an amazing golfer, and he was doing all these amazing things, but he was having sex with all these women. And maybe you're not doing that enough, because now that he's kind of slacked off on that, he's getting hurt on the golf course as well. So perhaps
I cut girls out. I hurt my knee.
I've got the solution for you.
There might be something about building their testosterone up there.
So there you go. Doc. Now, Brandon and Josh were talking before we came on the air. You guys got some stuff to talk about. Let's lay it out there.
We just go way back, just like you and Josh and all of us, really. And it's like, I can't believe how much crap I got for being the first guy to stand up and say, how are we having a poll about most accomplished or best fighter in Utah, and nobody's calling out Josh Burkman? I'm like, the guy's broken my heart twice, but I'm still going to be the first guy to stand up and say, you can't have that conversation without Josh Burkman. And he's done great things for MMA, for the UCE in its early days, and for the sport in Utah altogether.
It's funny about Josh, though, is I don't think he likes being in that conversation because his career's not over. He's still got stuff to do, and I think he still feels like, hey, man, I just scratched the surface.
I think that's a lot of truth to it. I feel like I've done a lot of things. I mean, really, Ultimate Combat, that was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and just the fact that I've been able to do this for so long and make a career of it and not have to do anything else.
Just, you remember,
awesome.
We went to Vegas one time.
Oh, boy.
And we were talking, it was one of a friend of his that was real 7 foot tall. And
Jackson.
And he was telling girls that he played in the NBA, which he wasn't at the time.
Not at the time.
Not at the time. And then Josh was telling girls that he was in the UFC. And Jackson ended up playing in the NBA, and Josh ended up playing in the Josh saw it before it happened.
They manifested their future
that's
right
it. You
there.
got to know where you're going to go, and sometimes you got to fake it before you make it.
I remember to this day, Josh. We were watching Tito Ortiz fighting, and Josh turned to me and said, "I want to fight Tito."
A couple weeks or a few years later, I was talking to Mike, and he's like, "You remember when me, you, and Jackson were in Vegas?" He's like, "I should have said I wanted to be a millionaire."
I know, man. I was just the fat dude hanging out with him, man. I'm still that guy. So
there's not a time in this state where I've ever mentioned MMA trying to promote, our own gym and stuff where the name Josh Burkman doesn't come up, or Mike Stidham for that matter.
But it also, it's so much about the growth of this sport and where it started, because Mike, I'd never even heard about the sport in Utah until I was driving home from Dixie State,
right.
And I heard your radio ad, and I was like, they're letting us fight downtown. And that alone made me drop out of school, quit playing football, and go after a new sport. And at that time, nobody was doing, there was no Ultimate Fighter on TV. There was nothing on TV yet. You were just getting ready to come out with your first TV show.
Yeah.
And now to see what this sport has done here locally, as far as shows springing up and guys making careers, Court McGee, Ramsey.
Right.
Utah's a mecca for the sport. And it's because, you've had your fighters for 10 years.
Yeah.
You've been doing your show for 10 years, and so it's interesting to see how big the sport's grown, but how much more there is to be able to do. Like Mike said, we're all just scratching the surface in our careers,
Josh, how pivotal do you think that it was that was it happenstance? You wound up against Hank Weiss in your first fight, and he beat you. And had you just come in and beat up some tomato can, would you say, that was fun, and maybe moved on and gone back to football or something? Or do you feel like, because I know the competitor in you made you, no, he beat me with because you were beating the crap out of the guy for a round and a half, and then he caught you in an armbar. Do you think that was something that led you to really dig in and get into this sport?
Absolutely. I think that if I would have went in there and just beat up Hank Wise, I would have been like, I'm the toughest dude in the world. Let's go play football again. But I tell this story how, I got in there and I was like, fight, I'm in shape, and I was in football shape. I was getting ready to go up and play ball. And I think 2 minutes into that first round, I was just like, this was just another animal. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything. And I had a whole another minute to fight. Yeah. And then in between rounds, we went back and I looked at, my cousin, and I was like, I can't move my arms. I can't move my legs, bro. Like, I don't know if I can get up. And the referee comes over and goes, okay, let's go. And it was the hardest thing and the hardest moment that I've ever had to come through in my whole life. Yeah. And I was just, if I could master that sport, if I could master that moment, then I could do anything. So it made me want to do it. And then came back and beat Hank Weiss.
Convincing fashion. Now let's fast forward a couple of years, because we walked into Club Naked, I think it was, and there were a couple of NFL players there. In fact, we were all going, "Hey, those guys playing the NFL." Right. People were shoving past them to get to you, because you became just a superstar, and a lot of it was being on television. But you learned how to take that persona and take that people's warrior and make the most out of it.
Well, I think there's a part of the fight game that may be missing a little bit right now in our sport, but look what Don King did with his boxers. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Look what they're doing now, De La Hoya and these guys. Right. And you did the same thing with us. Right. There were guys walking around this state that thought they were superheroes because of the TV show.
And they were in a lot of people's minds.
Absolutely. And so I think that it exploded a lot of our platforms. But that's why I had to leave Utah and go to Oregon, because
really, honestly, yeah.
People had already thought you're good and you're going to be the best fighter. But yeah, there was a whole nother.
You had to get away from you had way too many testicle swingers. How do you say that politically correctly? But you just had way too many guys just kind of dragging you down, if you will, and you realized, I got to get out of here. But one of the things I do remember, though, you came back and Mafu Fosta was being courted by some people, hey, go fight in this bigger show and that kind of thing, and you sat him down and said, hey, man, don't do it. Take your time. Get X amount of fights in, because I think that's the biggest mistake you see from a lot of guys. They want to shoot for the stars right away, and that's been the downfall of so many good fighters, in my opinion.
I mean, I've seen so many guys try to rush their paths, to where like I'm 9 years into the sport now, almost 10 years, and I feel like I'm just barely starting to get into my prime.
And you look at the past 10 years, think 10 years ago, how little you really knew about the sport. And now with the benefit of 10 years experience, just imagine had you had that going into the UFC.
Well, I think your show, the fact that I could fight every other weekend
helps accelerate things.
Helped things out a little bit, and it also gave me a taste of things that I was going to see, to where, things with Mafu, I was like, you have an opportunity to fight all the time.
Yeah.
Like when I was living in Oregon, when I was living in other plaplaces, you didn't have that. Not to mention you could make money.
Yeah.
You had to fight a smoker bout at a gym against a buddy.
Yeah.
To just get into one of those shows. So at the same time, it taught me how to market myself. It taught me how to, but you knew what you were doing. Mike made sure I was the main events, and he blew up People's Warrior. And, that I look back at that, and that was probably one of the funnest times in the career, because it was just we were all just having a good time.
We did have a lot of good times.
Do you think if you started fighting now rather than 9 years ago, with how popular the sport is now, do you think you'd still wait 9 years? Kind of take the same path that you did?
If I started, I look now at the sport, and I started at 22 years old. I was a football player, baseball player, wrestled, and so wrestling was my background at 22 years old. Mm-hmm. But at the gym now, I go in and I see these kids that are 6 years old and 7 years old and 11 years old, and they're already getting so good. So I that's like what the sport's done to evolve to where this kid that I fought last in Toronto, kid was 21 years old. He had 50 Muay Thai fights by the time he was 16 years old. From 16 to 21, he'd had 30 MMA fights. I'm at 30 right now.
Right.
So if I was to do it again, I would definitely slow it down. But now you have to start the sport different. You need to go get a background. I called up Mike and was like, hey, can I fight? And he's like, what gym do you train at? And I was like, well, I play football at Dixie. And he's like, I'm sure I could find you a matchup.
He gave him Hank Weiss.
We didn't know Hank Weiss.
He goes, he's like, one kid. I'm like, yeah, who is it? He's like, he's 9-0 and he won the division last time. And I go, yeah, I'll take it. And Mike goes, I like you. Come see me at the bar tonight.
But to answer your question, though, yes, because if you jump into the game right now, when you try to make that jump, you're going to be fighting guys that have been in there for 10 years. You're going to be fighting guys that have been doing martial arts all their lives. So don't you think you want to prepare yourself before you got to take that chunk?
You would think.
Absolutely. But would I? No, I'd probably just be like, give me that one.
Knowing Josh, you would. Brandon, you got something for Josh, man. Lay it out there.
I want to know what's next, man. Where are you going now? You've got this injury setback. Yeah. It's not your first injury.
No.
So are you going to get over this and move on? What's the plan?
I think that personally I'm at a better place in my career than I've ever been. I mean, I'm in better shape at 31 years old than I was at 25. My comeback has been slow.
I would expect you to say that in a full body cast in the emergency room.
Absolutely, right? My doctor's here. We're going to talk about it. Well, I think, and also, I wasn't taking care of myself the way that I do at 31 years old of how I was at 25 years old. I wasn't going to the chiropractor. I wasn't doing things that made me feel better, and my diet, I hurt my knee and I go research what it is that I need to eat to make
Well, you're not here on the radio show smashing beer cans into your head, so clearly you've matured a little.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I got to tell you, the remarkable thing about Josh, spend 5 minutes with him and he's not the same Josh you knew 5 years ago. He's matured a lot, and not just as a person, but in the cage as well. I think he's now learning how to fight more effectively and more, thinking long term, those kind of things.
Thank you. And I think also one thing is when I was first getting in the UFC, I was like, give me Matt Hughes, I'm ready. But yet the way that I would train for 2 months to get ready for a fight, and then I would go travel and screw around for 2 months. And so I was in this cycle of getting in great shape and then falling out of shape, getting in shape, falling out of shape, to where I think now I'm constantly training, constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to improve my lifestyle, my martial art, everything. And so I have a long road to get back to where I want to be. I've been there before. I know how to get there.
But you know the road
And-
now, right? Exactly.
And now I know the road, and I know that I have a lot of work to get there. But what I wasn't doing before is I thought I could be the best. I thought I had it in me, but I wasn't doing the things that it would take to be the best.
Right.
And now I truly believe that I have the potential to be one of the best fighters in the world. The only difference is now that I believe it, because now I'm doing the things that it requires to be that person.
All right, we're going to talk about some of those things. We've got to take a break now. We're going to talk about some of those things about what Dr. Tim says you need to do. And I know you're going to listen to this guy because he knows what he's talking about. Don't go anywhere. We got more Ultimate Combat when we come back.